Welcome to another edition of U.S. Cricket Daily, your one-stop shop for all things Major League Cricket 2024. I'm Peter Della Penna, alongside Aaman Patel, who you'll see early and often on TV coverage for every match at Church Street Park.
Now, Peter, I know you haven't been to any of the Major League Cricket games this season yet, but I have a surprise for you to start today's podcast because I felt like we need to start today's podcast like they start every game in Major League Cricket. So let's see what the surprise is.
Opening the batting for U.S. Cricket Daily, Peter Della Penna.
How about that? There we go. It's our very own Joe Hickey. After we shouted him out, we had to get him on. And I feel that's pretty good. I know that you're a big player of the sweep, so maybe you're coming in the middle, but I don't think you'll mind the promotion of batting up top the order, Peter.
Get that man Joe Hickey a contract, baby. I love it. I love it. Good stuff. Not just the sweep, not just the orthodox sweep. The reverse sweep. You got to get the reverse out straight away. You got to entertain the fans, Aaman. The fans want to see the reverse sweep. Lovely stuff. Awesome. And not so awesome, unfortunately, though, was the fact that rain washed out what looked quite certain to be another victory for Washington Freedom. They were romping away in the power play in their chase, 62 for 9 after 4 overs, chasing a target of 204, which sounds like a lot, but they made it look like it was very, very easy to track down until the rain came, which looked fairly innocuous on television until it wasn't. Aaman, what was it looking like for you at the ground? Did you think the umpires made the right move, pulling the players off before trying to hustle through another 6 league deliveries?
Well, I think a little bit of context for coming into this game was yesterday was an off day for a lot of us in the broadcast crew, especially us commentators, but the grounds crew and the volunteers were there from 7 a.m. They had a full work day starting at 7 a.m. on Sunday, and then this morning got there at 6 a.m. to start work on the ground to try to clear up some of the wet spots. And I had a little segment with Natalie Germanos that they ran during the mid innings break, and we were going around through the fielding positions. I was running from the keeper spot to slip to point, and there were definitely some spots where, like, okay, it's a little bit damp as you're moving around. So it's always, I think, a safety thing more than it was anything. And honestly, I don't think anyone expected the rain to stay the way it did. Peter, I kid you not, you look at the radar, there was no green blob moving over the area. Like there was zero rain anywhere on the radar. And you look at the sky, it was perfectly blue, and there was just this one dark, thin cloud coming from that permanent shelter. And you're like, okay, this can't last more than 10 minutes maybe. And then it just picked up so quickly and just stayed on. So it was unfortunate, but it was, I think, a shock to everyone just how much it rained through a quote unquote passing shower.
Well, Hugh Jackman is coming out with a new movie, Wolverine and Deadpool, and I know James is working hard to try and get Wolverine on the show. He's a big fan of cricket, infamously during a segment on Channel 9 a few years ago. Got one right in the family jewels, right where you don't want it. He took one during, I believe it was a lunch break segment, but he's still here to tell the tale. He's Wolverine after all, so yeah, Rogue, Wolverine, maybe a bit of Cyclops, and we talked about unstoppable juggernauts during the early part of this MLC campaign, and both teams looked that way on the batting side at least. This was not a night for bowlers and not a night for fielders. We'll get into that in a bit, but at the top of the list, the most unstoppable juggernaut of them all, Faf du Plessis, who last year couldn't break 100 runs, couldn't break 50 runs for the season in MLC 2023. Well, what does he do tonight? 100 off of 58 balls, 12 fours, 5 sixes. And to me, Aaman, I don't know about you, the most impressive part of that knock is the fact that he was hardly huffing and puffing through any of it, in spite of the fact that the temperatures and conditions were quite uncomfortable, shall we say, despite how comfortable you look on camera right now.
Peter, I have to make sure I have a stack of napkins in my back pocket to wipe off all the sweat that is just dripping off me anytime right before we go on to air. But no, it was super impressive to see what Faf did. And you mentioned his poor run of form through Major League Cricket. I saw a graphic or this morning actually, and it was his innings through two seasons in a game of Major League Cricket and hadn't found runs and really nothing to speak of. And then today it just runs after runs after runs and shot after shot after shot. He was brilliant, Faf was. I mean, this was vintage. This was what you expect to see from him. And this is the what the Texas Super Kings can be, right? I think him and Devin has been in good form. He scored a 50 in the first game, 39 for 150 striker. You'll take that any day of the week on what started out as maybe a tougher track than what it finished on. But anytime these two get going early, it just takes so much pressure off of Aaron Hardy and Marcus Stoinis and opens things up for a guy like Calvin Savage and Dwayne Bravo at the end of innings to come in and hit the ball. Even a Milind Kumar, they just free so many things up. They're a lot like this Washington team. When things are going well at the top of the order, it'll trickle down. And so to see Faf hit some of the shots he did, it was just clean striking. Nothing was not out the middle of the bat for him today.
Well, he was certainly timing it very sweetly, and maybe this was the solution. He needs to be playing more games in 93-degree Carolina heat. Maybe that's what it took to spur him out of his shell on this occasion. For a 39-year-old, I'm 39 for the viewers out there. I feel like I'm a very insecure 39-year-old right now, seeing Faf du Plessis do what he did out on the field tonight. I certainly can't do that. That's why I'm hosting the podcast with you, Aaman. I can't do what Faf did, and what he did was quite special. It started off with a very solid power play. There were 67 for no loss after 6 overs, Faf du Plessis and Devin Conway, and then he kept on motoring along. He did get some opportunities, though. The Super Kings in general took advantage of some sloppy fielding. This was not a match to write home about in terms of the fielding. He was on 43 when Glenn Maxwell was bowling, and this sequence happened in the 7th over. It was just after the power play, and Faf sent one out to deep mid-wicket, and Justin Dill, what was he doing, Aaman? I have no idea. He was about 10, 15 yards in from the rope. Sometimes you see guys in maybe 5 yards in from the rope. He was a very generous 5, way more than 5 inside the rope, and it cost them because what should have been a straightforward catch that would have been held 3 yards inside the rope at deep mid-wicket winds up going over the head of Justin Dill, bouncing inside the rope, going over for 4, and that was a crucial moment. Obviously, he was on 43 at the time, went on to add another 57 runs. In terms of those kind of situations, especially at Church Street Park early in the season, is there anything you've observed inside the ground that has made judging chances difficult for guys as the sun is setting in certain parts of the day when these matches are being scheduled?
Yeah, if the sun was ever going to set during a game, and so we get kind of close to it, around 7:45 is really when the actually sunset's happening right now in front of my window. So this is kind of the time when the sun tends to set, but it tends to set away from the road. So if you've watched the games, it's the opposite side of the road, right? If you're looking at it from, let's say, the Shiloh Grove end will be on your right, and that's the side where the commentators are, where the car park is. It'll just be on the right. That's where the sun sets. So if you're in close to that road section of the ground, I think it can get tough there. Sometimes the sun's shining straight through you. But I don't think it's an incredibly tough ground to judge the catches at. I think when there's not clouds in the sky, right, that's always something you can't layer it. When it's, they talk about in a blue sky or a sky that is completely pitch black. Even with lights on, it's a clear sky is hard to take a catch in because of the fact that you don't have anything to judge the distance, right? You're just waiting for it to kind of come into your hands. So that's always a tricky bit. I just think in that moment, Justin Dilbert just probably took three steps more than he would have liked to forward, and it cost him that catch.
I'm clutching at the straws here. I'm trying to find a reason to explain why Justin Dill did what he did. I'm close to the Fazir Muhammad. Why did he do that? To explain what happened there. Maybe there is no explanation. It was just a bad misjudgment on his part. And he also dropped a catch later in the innings, too. This one, the first one, the chance by Faf du Plessis, I'm not really even sure if he got fingertips to it. He was trying to stretch his hand out, running backwards after the initial false step. And then he dropped a much easier chance at a deep mid-wicket. But he wasn't alone on the night. Dwayne Bravo fumbled one at mid-on later on, which might have actually been the worst drop of the night. But wrapping up the TSK innings, Marcus Stoinis, 29 off 18 balls, and Faf du Plessis bringing up his century for the Super Kings just before he got out. It was quick wickets in the sequence there. Sarbin and Chavalkar taking 2 for 33. But just to cap off the century and wrap up that part of what we're talking about, what was the atmosphere like in the ground when he got to triple figures? We saw you interviewing some TSK fans. There was quite enough yellow in there. The flags were waving. People were whistling for Texas and North Carolina. Some traitors in the crowd. I mean, what are these North Carolinians doing whistling for Texas? I don't understand this. But maybe you can help shed some light on what was going on there in a moment that he brought up 3 figures.
Yeah, anywhere the Super Kings play, anywhere the men in yellow play, they're going to have a huge following, especially here. A lot of individuals of South Asian descent, South Indian descent rather, and they are big fans of the Super Kings in the IPL, and that has not stopped them from being fans of the Super Kings in Major League Cricket. And that was probably the loudest moment of the day, just because I think at that point the heat cooled down a little bit. There was a little bit of cloud cover, so you saw more and more people start to come in to the ground, and the whistles were going off. They played the rally song when he got to his 100, and I think it was just a lot of relief too. I think you saw it from the dugout was you could just see that they were just so happy for Faf, and it's something that probably was weighing on him, just because again hadn't scored, and his celebration too. It wasn't this huge, heroic fist bump. It was almost just like, oh, I finally got some runs in this tournament that we can finally just like play cricket now. So from the fans, they were all loud. The bench was loud, and then from Faf, I think it was just kind of that relief. That was probably the most notable thing.
Well, it's wonderful that you can describe these things for us, Aaman, for the people who were not there in the ground, because viewers at home in the U.S., instead of seeing all these things that you've just described, we had a very, very important ad for a very important samosa brand interrupt the Faf du Plessis celebration. And so instead of seeing all of what you just talked about, Faf raising his bat and the crowd taking everything, we saw the wonder of the samosa and why you need to buy it on Willow TV broadcast in the U.S. So thank you for shedding some light on what happened with Faf after he brought up his 100. So he gets his 100, and there was a few tricky sequences actually leading into it, because after Marcus Stoinis got out, there was some indecision, shall we say, between the wickets between Milind Kumar and Faf du Plessis that almost resulted in what would have been a devastating run out in the 90s, but thank God that didn't happen. But in the end, Texas Super Kings end on 203 for 5, and then Travis Head and Steve Smith were shredding that, slicing it, dicing it, sauteing it, flaying it, everything all over the fields. 32 off 12 balls for Travis Head, 4 fours, 2 sixes. Steve Smith, 26 off 13 balls, 1 4 and 3 6, picking up where he left off in match number 1 against MI New York. And then maybe it wound up working against the Washington Freedom. Steve Smith hits the first ball of the 5th over for 6. They get to 61 for 1 after 4 overs, and then the first ball of the 5th over is a no ball, and Naveen Ul-Haq is trying to gather himself, and he's being very cagey. We saw this at times in the World Cup, some of the things that the Afghans have up their bag of tricks in terms of Gulbin and Nave. He didn't quite go that far to stall for the rain to come. But maybe the no ball did contribute a little bit to slowing things down, slowing them enough that we saw Steve Smith running off the field for what we thought was going to be a temporary delay, and then it wound up being a permanent one. Match stopped with the score 62 for none, waiting for the first legal ball of the 5th over to be bowled, and Washington Freedom were going to run away. If they had just gotten 6 more legal deliveries in, they were way ahead on Duckworth, Lewis, Stern method, and unfortunately, they're only going to get to share points from this match, Aaman.
Yeah, they'll feel disappointed in that. They were 30 runs ahead of Duckworth Lewis at that point, so all they really needed was just 6 dot balls. 6 dot balls, and they would have been dancing. They could have lost 3 wickets in the over and still would have been well ahead of the run rate. So, yeah, they're going to feel disappointed in that. But I think the one thing you'll take away if you're a Freedom fan or the Freedom side is, all right, Travis Head's into the runs now. Travis Head is looking good, and my goodness, was he taking Hardy to the cleaners. And you almost felt for Aaron Hardy because All right, bowls one on the legs in the slot, goes for 6 over backwards square. All right, you can't bowl there, and he does what he should have done was he came over the wicket that time. That first delivery was around, so he moves over the wicket, brings in deep mid wicket, sends out deep point. So the idea is he's going to try to angle it across the left hander. It's how Aaman took the wicket of Travis Head. And then that ball, Travis Head pummels it over extra cover, picks up 4 runs that way. And then, then he's like, all right, I'm going to go bowl the Yorker. And when I tell you, Peter, he missed the Yorker, it felt like by 5 inches. He didn't miss it by much. I mean, it was Travis Head was nearly in trouble. Like it was so close to being the other way, and he just misses the length and gets hit for the biggest 6 of the day. I mean, it was incredible to see what Travis Head was able to do. And I think if you're a Freedom fan, yes, does it hurt that you don't get those 2 points? And with only 7 games in this tournament, the margins are so fine. But to see Travis Head amongst the runs has got to be a good thing going into the rest of the season.
Now, the rain may have stopped play, but the rain did not stop Aaman Patel from getting into the crowd. And I'm a bit dubious about this, whether Aaman actually went into the crowd when it was raining, because, again, he's looking so handsome. GQ cover worthy, Aaman Patel. Everything's fine and very well coiffed there. What's the secret, Aaman?
You gotta just hope, I guess. I don't know. I don't do much to it, and I think you're overplaying it just a little bit. I'm no supermodel or anything like that. I don't, I think that there's some pretty attractive men in Major League Cricket, and I think they take the cake for me. So I'll take it, but I think you're overdoing me. Andrew Leonard, I think might have a shot at the GQ magazine. I'm sure he'll like that, but I'm not. I think you're just stretching a little bit too much for me.
As my grandpa used to have hanging in his car, a sign, "Bald is beautiful." We
There
know
you
that
go. There you
applies
go.
plenty. There you go. But Aaman did make his way into the crowd to get some reactions from the attendees at Church Street Park. Let's hear what some of them had to say.
All right, so who am I here with?
Vijay, Vikram.
And obviously, it looks like you guys are Washington Freedom fans. This is your first time?
In particular, after his performance in the World Cup.
Cool, guys. Thank you.
So those guys want to see more Saurabh Netravalkar, and why not? And I tell you what else I like from that clip: more Guns N' Roses. We got some quality DJ action happening in the background in that clip. We need more Welcome to the Jungle across the rest of Major League Cricket. We didn't get enough of that in the T20 World Cup. I was a little bit disappointed some of the DJ selections, but MLC stepping up the game in terms of the DJ roles. I love it.
You mentioned DJ Peter. It was actually kind of funny. I was right after I interviewed them. Thunder came on. I'm blanking on. Is it Imagine Dragons? That's the song on Lightning and the Thunder. And you could just see everyone was like, no, 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 no! Don't bring the lightning. Don't bring the thunder. Keep it away. But at that point, I think there was a foregone conclusion about the game. But it was kind of just an ironic moment for that song to be coming on. Before we get to any of that, we could not make this podcast without the support of our sponsor. And of course, US Cricket Daily is brought to you in association with Clyde Hill Publishing and its book imprints, Clyde Hill and Pulley Prez, which are dedicated to founders, innovators, thinkers, and tinkers everywhere. Pre-order our book on the rise of Major League Cricket in America at ClydeHillPublishing.com.
We had the Thunder and the rain washout play for today's match, but we've got another game coming up tomorrow in Texas. MLC shifts back to Grand Prairie Stadium, where it's going to be the LA Knight Riders taking on the Seattle Orcas. Knight Riders coming off a loss. And Orcas as well. Orcas still only played one game, that coming on opening night in Morrisville against MI New York, when they went down in a quite lopsided match. But that's the contest we've got coming up. And as part of the look ahead to that match, we are looking forward to having Alex Carey on the podcast. Alex will be a guest for us tomorrow night. We'll be recording that episode. Not sure when it's going to actually air, but Alex Carey, member of the LA Knight Riders squad, who are going to be taking on the Seattle Orcas in Texas. We're keen to have the man responsible for the most famous stumping in Ashes cricket history on the podcast. And we can talk to him about that and plenty of other things to do with cricket and MLC. But where's your forecast? on the field, off the field for tomorrow's game in Texas, because again, one of the things we have to keep in mind is Hurricane Beryl, the remnants of that, they washed through Texas. They could still be drifting north. We could potentially have some delays or other weather issues for the contest, so that's something to take into consideration as well. But in terms of the actual cricket itself, what's your perspective?
Yeah, I think Dave Agnew is going to do his thing and get that ground ready. I think we're going to have cricket tomorrow, no matter what. How many overs we lose, I don't think we lose any. To be honest, I think Dave Agnew is going to do a great job with it. But going to the game, I think it's really interesting because it's two teams that we've seen flashes from LA. When you talk about Old McJohn up top of the order, and then Spencer Johnson's been really good this season, but just haven't found like a real consistent performance. I thought they've won moments in the games, right? They've won with the ball at least. They won those 11 deliveries that gave Ali Khan those 4 wickets, and um, I think for Seattle, it's another question of just can the batting find its way back? Can Quinn de Kock find his way back amongst the runs? Can Noman Anwar do the same thing? Will Aaron Jones find some more runs back in Grand Prairie since the first time since that 94? Excuse me, this after the Pakistan game. So after that super over in the 36 he scored, and then the runs in super overs. The first time back there since then. Can he find runs at that ground? I really do think it's that top three, that top and into Heinrich Klaassen that's going to be the real question. Could those individuals find runs? Because then I think this team's a whole different look. I also think Wayne Parnell is an interesting question. Is he over the illness? It really could go either way. I think I'd give a slight edge to LAKR just because they've played on the wicket, and I think their bowlers understand the surface. Jason Roy's playing well, so you have at least one of the openers starting to find some runs. So I think I'd slightly give the edge to LA, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if Seattle gets it. I really think it's like a 51-49, or I don't think the margin is as wide as maybe some people would.
An interesting point you raised about Aaron Jones as well, because he scored basically the overwhelming majority of his runs during the T20 World Cup in Grand Prairie, Texas. Since he left that venue, he's been out of form. And maybe that's going to be the secret to getting him back in form, get him on that Grand Prairie wicket. Aaron Jones is going to have a whisper in the ear of Dave Agnew, say, Dave, sprinkle a little magic on the wicket for me so I can get back in the runs column again. Well, now to some viewer feedback, and we've been getting some great feedback so far from our listeners and viewers on YouTube, and you can reach out to us by email at hello@uscricketdaily.com, or you can contact us on Twitter as well at uscricketdaily. X as it is now officially known, of course. And first up, we've got Justin, who says, hey, I'm really enjoying the podcast in MLC Season 2. Well, thank you, Justin. I was watching the Vino Hawks bowling action and thought it was pretty different. Who do you think has a strange bowling technique? Well, Justin, it's all relative. Strange is it's in the eye of the beholder. What's beautiful to one person might be not so pretty to another, or strange not so strange to another. For the longest time, Jasper Bumrah used to have what was considered a wildly unusual action, especially when he first came up into IPL before even making it into international cricket. Now, you could argue he's a trendsetter. Everybody wants to be Bumrah going forward. And his action has had so much success that maybe it's deemed not so strange anymore. Maybe other people should be copying Jasper Bumrah's action. And Navino Hawk, maybe in that same vein, has something that's a little bit astray, shall we say, from the MCC coaching manual. But it's effective. It's got him to MLC. It's got him plenty of success in Afghanistan colors. Aaman, is there anybody that comes to your mind in terms of quote strange?
In Major League Cricket, I think someone that we saw live just recently here more so. I think Zaman Khan has a little bit more of a slingy action, Malinga-ish, if you will. You see a lot of those, that crop of bowlers come up. Someone in the U.S. who's actually represented the USA, I think Marty Kane has an underratedly unique bowling action. There's nothing unconventional about the rotation of the arm, but it's just the little pause he has as he's like gearing up to release the ball. So if you've ever seen Marty Kane bowl, I think that's something that you could look at. But in Major League, I think Zaman Khan might take the cake for that.
Yeah, Marty Kane, who's currently a USA women's selector as well. He's had a solid domestic career since coming over from New Zealand, and He told us once that his nickname is the Dying Worm. That's how his bowling action was described, and it was given to him by Yuvraj Singh when.
There you go. There you go. It beats what I told Andrew Leonard. Andrew Leonard came up to me and asked, on comms, he said, how would you describe Marty Kane's bowling action? And me at all of 18 years old sat there and was I think it reminds me of a stalling car, Lenny. It's just a little halts, and then you get into gear, and then you're ready to go. So I think Dying War might beat me on the stalling car part.
Yeah, it's not the automatic. It's definitely the clutch. The clutch stalls, and yeah, there's all sorts of issues that happen. But he gets the ball down to the other end, and somewhat effectively too. But yeah, Yuvraj gave him that nickname when India was touring New Zealand, and he was a net bowler, and it stuck. So hello, Marty Kane. Hello, Marty, if you're out in San Diego following along. Mo asks, if the MLC was ever going to expand, which they are planning to at some point down the road, which states in America do you think it would expand to, and why? You said the other day that Florida would be a no-no because of weather conditions. If not Florida, then where? Aaman, I'll let you have a crack at this one first.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of really good options. I think there's a lot of good hubs. I'd love to see one in North Carolina just because we have Church Street Park and it'd be cool. But I think Chicago is a real interesting place. I think the grounds that they're building there, the real community that there is out there. I mean, when I was in Barbados for the World Cup and I spoke to individuals who were from the States, an overwhelming majority of them were from Chicago. So I know the weather might be a little bit of a concern just because it's up north, but during the summertime, I don't think there should be any issues. So I think Chicago is a really cool, interesting area. So I think Illinois and into the greater Chicago area would be cool.
There's that. Atlanta is another one. Back when MLC was first being formed, Atlanta and Chicago were actually two of the proposed cities and places that were going to have franchise affiliations. In particular, Atlanta didn't quite work out, but Atlanta, there's a lot of activity going on there that makes cricket in the pipeline there an interesting prospect. For me personally, I'm thinking bigger picture. I want to see a franchise in Las Vegas. If the Raiders are in Las Vegas, and now the A's are going to be moving there at some point, why not have a cricket team in Las Vegas and get a retractable roof facility for them? You can't play cricket in Las Vegas in July when it's going to be 120 degrees. That's not going to work. But America is land of ingenuity. So many creative solutions we can come up with to get cricket happening in Las Vegas. I know Shane Warne, before he passed away, when he came out to the U.S. for the Cricket All-Stars Tour in 2015 with Sachin Tendulkar, he was saying, I love going to Vegas. He plays in the World Series of Poker. I love playing cricket in Vegas. We got to make Warney's dream a reality. So Vegas, for me, would be one place, and I'm thinking, too, of places in golf. Hilton Head Island. That's where my family hails from now. Everybody abandoned New Jersey. They jumped ship. They said, we want warm weather. We want sun and fun. Hilton Head, baby. Hilton Head is the place to go.
There you go.
They've got the Harbor Town Links right after the Masters is finished in April. Great golf tournament. And there is a gentleman down in South Carolina in Hilton Head, family friend, Tom Nail. Tom Nail, American, born and raised in Buffalo, New York. He's an MCC member. He's one of a handful of American MCC members, and he's very proud of that. And I know if they built a cricket facility in Hilton Head, you would have at least one fan showing up in Tom Nail, and I have no doubt many more would love the cricket if they love the Harbor Town Links and the lighthouse, the beautiful setting there in Hilton Head Island. Why not cricket in Hilton Head? Make it happen. Come on. And finally, Liv asks, I'm fairly new to cricket, so I'm trying to get my head around all the technical terms. The other day you mentioned DLS, which I looked up online to see it meant Duckworth Lewis Stern. I know it's some math formula for working out run rates when it rains, but I don't really understand it. Can you help? Well, Aaman, you just got your degree from North Carolina, one of the most prestigious institutions in all of America, so show everybody what you learned in your time at Chapel Hill.
I don't think there's any university in the world that'll teach you exactly how the DLS method works. I'm not sure many people understand exactly how the DLS method works. You typically punch it into, there's like an application, you punch in all your numbers, and then it spits it out for you. The way they kind of operate it is you put the score from the first innings in, right? So from today, 203, and then you put in the number of overs that you need to play, and the total number of overs that can be played. So it's 20 overs, and then you need 5 overs for a result here. And then from there, they kind of give you a result, and they base it based on the runs, and then the overs that you and what over should you have which run, and then from there, there's also the wickets that affect that too. So if we were talking about it earlier, Peter, when we mentioned that after that fourth over, the Freedom were 30 runs ahead. They could have played literally 6 stop balls and still been ahead of what was required. But if they would have lost 4 wickets, it would have pushed their required runs so far up that they wouldn't have gotten there. So it's a complicated process, but the crux of it is that it takes your wickets and the number of overs you played and decides whether the runs that you've scored are par with the runs that would have been scored in the first innings, basically.
One of the things I love about the DLS method in terms of helping new fans learn about the sport is I have a friend from New Jersey, my next door neighbor growing up. His name is Evan, and he loves betting. And when I took him to a World Cup match in 2019, it was West Indies versus Afghanistan, and he figured out on his mobile app that who's winning? The great question in cricket. Who's winning? How do you decide who's winning in cricket? Well, he figured out, if you look at the Duckworth-Lewis-Stern calculation on the scoreboard, that'll give you a hint as to who's winning in terms of the gambling odds on the live gambling markets. So if you're curious, why is Afghanistan at even money right now when they were 5-1 before the game started? Well, if you look at the DLS and the chase, and they're ahead of DLS and the chase, that'll let you know Afghanistan's winning. So that's where the smart money is. So there's some educational things that American sports fans who love to put some money down, put their money where their mouth is, whether it's NFL or cricket. Duckworth Lewis is very handy in that regard as well. So thank you for those questions, guys. And again, if you want to contact us on the show, it's hello@uscricketdaily.com to have a chance to have your questions read out on air. And that'll do it for this episode. We'll be back tomorrow. As we said, we've got an interview lined up with LA Riders wicketkeeper Alex Carey, who is an Ashes hero to some and Ashes villain to others, for his role in the 2023 Ashes in England. Plus, we've got a very special interview lined up as well with Piers Morgan, who has many hats that he wears, but one of them, the reason why he's coming on the podcast, he's a cricket fan. He loves his cricket, does Piers. In addition to, for the American audience, being a winner of the Celebrity Apprentice many years ago, he's going to come on the podcast, and he might have some thoughts about Trump as well, having an opportunity to be alongside the former president in his time on the Celebrity Apprentice. And we'll also get an opportunity to talk to Kevin Peterson later on during the course of Major League Cricket. KP, sometimes England superstar, sometimes wildlife warrior. He's very into his conservation. He's going to come on the podcast as well next week, and we're looking forward to that. Aaman, any more thoughts on what you experienced today in Church Street Park?
It was gearing up to be a great one, Peter. I think that would have been a real tight finish, would have gone down to the 20th. The rain unfortunately kept it away. But I think Major League Cricket, it's just a beautiful thing to have these types of games, see these types of players. The amount of kids there are probably the most exciting thing because there are so many of the youth academy players there. They're just getting to see Travis Head and Steve Smith live. And I'm just thinking back to when I was 14, 15 years old with all our guys, and we come from practice, and if we would get a chance to see those guys in our backyard, just how cool that would have been. So it's a real special moment, Major League. And you know what? Let's hope for the rain to stay away so we get a full 40 overs in.
Well, you've got cricket in your backyard in Morrisville, North Carolina, and we hope you've got your phone in your back pocket loading up U.S. Cricket Daily. Each episode you can get again on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. That'll do it for this episode. On behalf of Aaman Patel, I'm Peter Della Penna. Come back again for another episode of U.S. Cricket Daily. Take care.